Welcome to Shelf Help, hailing from Iceland. Today we're speaking with Gardar Stefansson, co-founder and CEO of Good Good, fastest growing spread brand in the US last time I checked. Originally started as Via Health, a brand focused on stevia drops and tabletop sweeteners. Gardar was asked to join the company to basically restructure and rebrand into what ultimately turned into the Good Good you see today on the shelf. And I think over 10,000 doors at least the last time I checked. So really cool story. Excited to get into it. Gardar, maybe just first off, for the listeners that aren't all that familiar with Good Good, give us just quick lay of the land in terms of origin story, why behind the brand, core products you guys offer, maybe just floor out a few places that people can get their hands on them, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Good Good is Icelandic originated spread brand. We focus on creating no added sugar spreads that are low calorie with natural ingredients that taste good and are good for you. We started as a sweetener company in Iceland, and we were super interested in stevia and other natural sweetener that had just been allowed in the EU market a little bit before that in the States, and had high hopes to become a leading stevia and natural sweetener brand. That did not materialize, and we needed to pivot to something else. We had overproduced, which is a common problem for CPG companies and Excel forecasts when the Excel sheet looks better than your actual earnings. So I talked to my co-founder and said, like, hey, we need to do something with our inventory here, otherwise it's going to expire. And I had this idea that, we could make jams out of it because always in the fall in Iceland, I used to go to the mountains with my kids and family and just like pick berries and then make a jam. I was always appalled on how much sugar went into those beautiful natural berries. So I thought like, hey, we could use our sweeteners to do this. So we met in my kitchen, quite desperate, but also full of enthusiasm and innovative mind of set. And we boiled the berries, added the sweeteners we had, smelled really good, looked really good, made it cool down a bit, tried it, and it was the worst thing I ever put in my mouth. It was the worst thing. It was overly sweet. It completely was not there. But as with everything, that was the first prototype number one. So after about 100 trials, we got the functional recipe that we still use today. So we pivoted from being a sweetener company into a spread company, focusing on the natural aspect of it, focusing on the low calorie aspect of it, and so forth. That was in 2016 when that happened. Years later, we are one of the fastest growing spread brands in the United States. We sell to 30 countries around the world. We are available in banners like Walmart, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Publix, Meijer, H-E-B, Kroger, and so forth. So growing every year and building our customer base and making customer happy with not eating too much sugar, at least not when they are adding spreads to whatever they're having.
That's great. So it's such a cool pivot. It's always cool to see companies when they make a pivot like that and see that much success that you guys are seeing. You talked a bit about the kind of R&D formulation process. The first version that you made didn't taste great. It sounded like it took a fair amount of iterations to get there. Without giving it any way too many trade secrets, what were some of the key variables that you guys played around with during the R&D formulation stage from that first one that tasted terrible to the point where you got to the version where you're like, okay, this feels right. I feel good about bringing this to market.
Yeah, that is a great question, and to answer that fully, it's still we're always improving it. It's good, and I think that's the key with innovative CPG brand is like there's no like the formula is never done. You can always make it better, and sometimes you can even make it worse. I don't recommend that route, but that sometimes happens. Too many. The iteration was that first we just copied the sugary formula, which is like 50% berries and 50% sugar, and that was the mistake. So it's like it's hard to balance natural sweeteners with the fruits. So we increased the fruit count quite heavily, and then we balanced out the sweeteners. We also use the right amount of preservatives, natural preservatives that sometimes boost also the flavoring depending on the berry, and that has helped us maintain the flavor profile without sensing that it's sweetened with anything else than just like the right amount, so the fruit flavor really pops out. It's always going to be less sweet than a sugary one, and that's a benchmark we just have to accept, and that's also what our customer like. But that's like, we're just creating something completely different. It's like the jam category has been existence for as long time as men were able to cook. So as preserves. So this was just like our approach to create this to offer now, since sugar is in everything we eat. That wasn't the case 100 years ago. It's the case now to offer an alternative, like let's eliminate sugar from the spread category. It's a tricky thing. I mean, it's super easy to create a healthy product, like from a macro standpoint or nutritional values, but it's super hard to make healthy product taste good and vice versa. So that is a balance that is it's a thin line that is really hard to navigate. And I
Totally.
mean, we have a storage room back in Iceland with failed products that we haven't even launched because we don't launch product unless they fulfill the great taste, as long as the nutritional effect and ingredients are on par with that promise.
Yeah. Did you know from the beginning that you were going to use this? I think you use a stevia erythritol blend for the sweetener, or did you play around with various options and blends before honing in on that blend? It might have just been as simple as, because you mentioned you were sitting on a bunch of inventory from the previous brand iteration, like the tabletop sweeteners and the drops. And was it just as simple as we already have the sittings, we're just going to use what we've got, or yeah, was there more tweaking involved in playing around with the different sweetener blends?
Well, I mean, the problem was that we had stevia and erythritol at our inventory, so we needed to use that. So that was like the urgency was, hey, we need to get this into something and sell it. So that was always what we aimed at. In regards of other sweeteners, I mean, we have done, and it's a really good formula. It's as close to like the sweetness as sugar. It's about 80% of the sweetness of sugar, but at the same time, it's not, that overly sweet, and it doesn't have the aftertaste which many other naturals and artificial sweeteners have. And so that was like the urgency was that we had those sweeteners on hand, let's use them. And then we just have tweaked the formula, like by adding different kinds of berry formulations and ratios and so forth. And that has helped a lot. We are also, I mean, we are constantly developing. So now, for example, we just launched a new line with Whole Foods where we don't use erythritol and use much larger amount of berries, about 80 to 90%. So that's like we're always pivoting in that like category and trying to test something else with different customers. So with our peanut butter, we use prebiotic fibers from chicory root that are extremely like helpful. It's good for the gut bacteria, but at the same time it sweetens the product. So it's like it makes the peanut butter a little bit sweeter without being overly sweet like the legacy brands that we grew up with as kids. So yes, we are always trying things out and testing it, but when we have a good formula going and you just need to do minor tweaks to it, then and it, like the customer really reacts to it well, we just tend to go along with that. But I think it's always you can always do a little bit better. It's like that's the mindset you need to have, like, and if as soon as you stop innovating, you are also coming to a halt as an innovator and entrepreneur.
Totally.
So
Yeah, totally agree. I know previously to Good Good, you built salt brand out in Iceland. I think is Nordur Salt, if I'm pronouncing that right. Like what like thinking back now, what kind of learning lessons or insights do you feel like from your days building the Nordur Salt were top of mind as you came on board with the next venture?
yeah, so that was a amazing experience, and that like was a little bit more in terms of the production side. So my experience from there was building a production facility from ground up, securing investment for it, building it up, negotiating with the authorities to build that plant, branding and getting everything going from the get-go. So the learnings that I took from there was like, from like branding was just and pitching a product is something I've used a lot. So I think like as a food entrepreneur, you need to understand how food is made. As long if you can't understand how fruit grows or how they're processed, same with like how salt is made. If you can't portray that and put that as your story, I think people will like yes, people will at least judge you a bit from that because you need to be an expert. You know what I mean? Like in what you're saying, and often without boring people to death with tiny details, it can be a really good intricate part of your pitch. And also the follow-up questions is explaining how things work, explaining how this come about, like how it's made, why like our product is more sensitive than the sugary ones and so forth. Also, a huge learning is like to outsource when you can, focus on what you're best in. And I mean, it was running a production facility from like the beginning, in the original steps, and also branding and selling and doing all that was extremely hard thing to do. So it's about, with good we figured out once we got into the spread that, hey, there are great producers out there. We have the recipe. We did all the hard work there. There are people and companies and facilities that are faster, better, faster, and able to scale that we can work with. So that was the learnings. Like now we have the recipe. We did like that developing work, and we're going to continue to develop. But maybe we can negotiate with a co-packer to help us produce. And that's what we did. So we outsourced that to a capable producer that's definitely better in doing that at that stage of time than we are. And meanwhile, we focused on the branding and the selling and the story, and we're able to scale faster without seeking investment to build new production machines or factory and so forth. So you know, the key there is that able to, know where your strengths are, know what your company needs at that point of time for you to push on. And that was product development, branding, selling, and just being founder and just going out there and sharing the story and selling the product. And that's like, that was the key then, and it's still the key now. But like, that's like diversifying and knowing your strengths and talents and where you should apply them at that stage in your business growth.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. Those are really helpful. In terms of the pivoting from Via Health to Good Good, in terms of that rebrand, new brand creation, just from a brand identity, packaging standpoint, I guess first off, just what did that naming process look like that ultimately led you to decide on Good Good?
Yeah, it's I wish I had a better story. Like I was walking and lightning came from the sky and put the name Good Good in front of us. But the truth is that our creative agency in Iceland, that one of our co-founders is actually his agency, came to us with that name. It's that simple as that. They're like, hey, I mean, you're creating a product that tastes good and are good for you. Why not call it Good Good? And as simple as that is, we liked it. I was sure that someone had taken that name specifically in the US, which was not the case. So I immediately registered the trademark and did it worldwide for our category. And, we had like, there were some people that came to us like when we were starting and like saying, good, good. That's so common. Why not call you like something like a word with different letters, like use Scandinavian letters instead of A or U, you know what I mean? And like, then people will, know that you're different. Totally, and everyone's doing that like in 2019, tons of brand like True Fruit and others, which is cool and nothing wrong with that. But I also like the idea like, hey, it sounds like we have been on the market for 50 years, and just getting there. And like, as soon as we get more brand recognition, it just feels right. So that was the strength we saw in the name. And today we're super happy with the name and the product and being able, I was glad that in 2018, I registered the brand like and took it, for our categories. But, I think it helps us in the long run, even though I agree with our constructive critic back then that yes, we would have had a name that would be more different, that people easier to talk about SEO purposes and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was mainly thinking about how do we look in the shelf, because that's like our main focus is there. Even though online is important, it's just about, how do we look in the shelves and then build from there.
In terms of the actual kind of visual identity, the look of the packaging and the brand, what were some of the key variables that were top of mind for you in terms of, what you included in that brief?
Yeah, the brief was simple in the beginning. The first one, we need a name. That was the brief. Health is to like doesn't explain exactly who we are, but and in the beginning it just was a super simple logo that was created, and we like were happy with it. It was not the forefront. We used different hierarchy in terms of communication. So it was the product name that was communicated first, and then the attributes. And then we were like happy with like the patterns were there and everything, like the same idea of like the natural perspective and the coloring. It was all there from the beginning from our great designers back in Iceland. But then in 2020, me and my other co-founders are checking out a store that we're in. And we go into the store and we look at the shelf and we can't find our product there. And we're like looking at the shelf and we're like, where's the product? It's supposed to be here. It's like the store locator says it's here. And then like after 30 seconds, we're like, it's there, like, and then we were like, it was awakening for us. Like, even though it looks great on a screen in your computer alone, it doesn't work in the jungle that the supermarket is. So that's when we went back to the drawing board
Okay.
and we created the Smiley Good logo, and we put the attribute first, and then we put the product name below, and focused on the branding as the main communication from our standpoint. But that brief was totally different from the first one. It was about, hey, we have our product is like nothing else. It's the lowest calorie natural spread out there. It needs to reflect that in the packaging. This is like our main method of getting new customers, and that's the shelf space that we have invested in. And from there, the good was the logo we use today, and the messaging was created from.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. From a go-to-market standpoint, I'm pretty sure you guys made a pretty early bet on Amazon before putting a focus on going into retail. Like what have you guys found that's been key to winning in this Amazon channel?
Yeah, I think like you have to. What are you going to use the Amazon channel for? It's not good channel for products that are heavy and have low price. And when I say low price, below $20 a unit, which most food CPG products are. In our case, winning on Amazon is to be break even and promoting the product. Getting new customers and using it as a marketing channel, and that what has been our decision since we got into Amazon in 2016. So the first reason for why we used Amazon was that we recognized the power of it. I mean, it had already disrupted the book market. It was going full force into gaming and everything that was related to entertainment. In 2016, the food space had just started, and they had like maybe 3 years ahead, like allowed sellers to sell on their own there using their platforms. So we saw this as a great tool to get our product to the US without over investing in shipping a container, getting a warehouse with expiring products, hiring people to sell. So from there we saw like, hey, let's just send a couple of cases to Amazon and let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
And that was like, we got like immediately customer reaction with the reviews, and like we got like some trashy reviews, and some of them are completely right. Like, hey, my jar broke, and then we like, hey, we need to create a better packaging, and so it doesn't break while shipping. And then it's been super helpful in product innovation, making the product better, knowing the customer, like what do they want, because they're paying a lot to get the product. But we use it mainly, and we were at the time before we got into distribution with 10,000 stores in the state. We were the best selling jam brand on Amazon. So that helped us get into retail. So when we are, entering seriously the US market in 2019, 2020, we just pointing out the fact that we are the best selling jam on Amazon. And that's something the buyers can then look at themselves and see that this product is bought by thousands of people, every week, and they should perhaps think about adding it to the shelves. And I think it's still super relevant and important channel.
Yeah.
It's hard to make profits there with glass jars and heavy items at the
Right.
price point we're at. And that's just a fact. But and the beverage CPG founders have exactly the same method. Like they overinvest in Amazon to get the products into the hand of customers and then hope that that will scale into
Yeah.
wider distribution.
Yeah. No, that makes, I mean, it's a logical strategy for sure. Well, let's just say an up and coming operator approach you, ask you for some advice, and they're just about getting ready to launch on Amazon. What would you tell them is the number one, if you had to pick one KPI that they should be tracking on a daily basis as they're ramping up on Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, I would first of all, foremost, ask them about what the goal is. Is it brand awareness? Is it first time customer? Is it just to be alive there with good reviews? I mean, what is the goal? But like, let's just say it's going to be they want to get trials and increase brand awareness. I will definitely recommend pricing, and make sure that if the goal is to go to supermarket, you can't overly price your product. You have to be on par with the competition there because the customer is not going to buy a six pack of something that costs two times as much there as the competitors. So you have to align on that. Marketing wise, like do the right sponsored ads, the keywords, put realistic goals in place, put your spending, like how much are you going to spend? I think a lot of first timers there go in there and either spend too much or too little, so it's key to focus on that's the case. Like this is the amount, this is what I budget for, these are the projected sales. And then I will focus on like just put your best sellers there.
Yeah.
Don't put, if you have 10 SKUs, just put three, like focus on doing them the best. There are going to be operational challenges. Amazon is going to lose your inventory and it's going to take 2 months to get something out of it. If you get something out of it,
Right. Yeah.
expect to
I've
lose a
heard
lot
those
of money.
nightmare stories before.
Yeah, yeah. Expect to not lose. I mean, expect that you're investing in this channel. And then I think also it's the key is just like focus on the customer there. Like, you know, if you get a negative review, analyze it. Is it a competitor trying to, keep you out? Is it like something related to how the product is fulfilled? Is it about the taste, And then, try to get as many 5-star reviews and happy customers as much as you can and then build on that. We will shop. I mean, we always, at least I do, read all the reviews. Not all the, I read the best reviews and I read the worst reviews just to figure out like how is this product, So yeah, you're investing in the story of your new SKU or ASIN. You want it to look good and you want it to go well. And, don't expect that you're going to be the best selling item in week one
Yeah.
or
Totally.
like or the stores are going to call you and like, hey, can we get your product? It's like it's a long marathon ahead.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Those are all really helpful tips. Shifting a bit forward, you guys kind of prove the concept on Amazon, prove that there's a market for it. Then at some point you decide, okay, we're going to start, putting the focus on retail. In terms of launching it and growing in retail, what did your initial kind of go to market strategy look like?
Yeah, I mean, we went in at a too low price, so we, I mean, from the European model, which is like you're always at a low price, and promotions are very rare, they happen maybe once or twice a year. So we needed to restructure our price proposal and build our offerings on a 20-week promotion a year, and work with the retailers from that. So the mistake we did was just being inexperienced in that regard that then we quickly learned to fix, like with everything. The best way for us is like in the space that we are in, which is moving slower than snacks and beverages and a little bit less innovation than those categories as well, is to focus primarily on promotions and invest in the packaging and the main message there. That's the key, and work as much with the retailer programs as we can. Build good relationship with them, ask them about their, promotional mechanism that they have or vehicles that they have in place, and build the brand within those banners. So closely monitor that. We use spins data. We check it every month. We get like all kinds of other data. Then we are also heavily in social media. That's the key. I mean, if you do it well, that is, and that needs to be authentic with a true voice, sharing a good story, and also communicative. There are your fans are there, and those are the most important people ever. So it's like, and always treat them like royalty and VIP, and try to build the community around them, try to recognize them, try to find them, because those are the reasons for why your brand they are the main fuel in the beginning that will propel it to other heights. So it's like the key is just the community and using those tools available. Other than that, like trying to get new customer is also super important. So do good promotions, focus on your best selling products that are gonna like people will like to buy again, and then build the velocities from there. So it's like, it sounds simple, those three main points, but it's super complicated because you're dealing with maybe 40, 50 retailers that you need to fix, and then promotion things get lost. But it's like, that's why it's so important also to have amazing team with you, and that we at Good have, experienced people that just like are on it and will do the things needed to get things going.
Last time I checked, I think you guys were in, the brand was in roughly 10,000 doors or so. As you've gotten to that, top spread brand in the US, as you're thinking about scaling up to the next, 30, 40,000 doors, what does that strategy look like to you in your mind? Is it, more of the same, keep doubling down on what's working? Or are there some new things you're kind of thinking you're gonna have to try to, take that next big uh, jump in terms of door count and expansion?
Yeah, I think like the core is the most important one. So we need to make sure that like the stores and new accounts we enter, the velocities are there. So it's like, for us, like we are not in a race to get into as many stores as possible. We are in a race to sell as much as we can within the stores we're at. So that's has been our focus, and we have said no to new retailer accounts, just like because that's not the goal right now. So that's the base. And then like we are all constantly thinking about our product offerings, sizes, and different opportunities. So that's something we are doing. We launched our peanut butter like a year ago. We've been super careful about not launching it in every new account possible. We see tons of opportunities. It's a new fiber enriched prebiotic peanut butter that just tastes good and like it's good for you, everything we do. Like, so there are tons of opportunities of like different sizes, convenient sizes, like to go, that we are exploring and probably gonna launch. But the core is still like we want to sell more per store this week than we did last week. So that is like our core focus, and it's so easy. I mean, it's so easy to lose sight of that and like try to get in as many accounts as possible. But there's no feeling as horrible, at least in the CPG world, as getting discontinued
Totally.
because of insufficient sales. So it's like, it's kind of like hair of the dog is like you go into all of those accounts, and then you're not performing, and then like, yeah, you're not selling, so I'm going to get a new brand in. So we take super care of the stores and chains we're in, and we want to grow there because that's going to have a multiplier effect for sure.
This question's really getting in the weeds. But I talked to some operators that tell me like after the first year or two on shelf within a retailer, even when the brand is a velocity leader, like you guys in the spread category, it can still sometimes be challenging to kind of capture more shelf space and to be able to get those opportunities that take advantage of out of aisle opportunities like, end caps, side caps, that kind of stuff. I think partially it's because some of the bigger established brands that just pay more for shelf space, kind of try to keep their elbows up. They're always in the retailer's ear. I'm not sure if this resonates with you at all. Have you had like a similar experience? And if not, great. If so, I'm curious. Have you uncovered any strategy that work to kind of combat some of these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, like we're like up and coming, basically the new guys on the block, So it's like we've only been on the market for 5 years, and we are like competing to legacy brands that have been there for 110 years, So it's like that have the power and have done tons of mergers in the past and just own basically the shelf space. So yes, it's hard to you know you have to take space from someone, and like the at least the spread category jams is like decreasing maybe 1% a year, or we are like growing like crazy. So that's the story you try to tell, like, hey, we are like your answer to the customers that are stop shopping this, so try to increase the space. But it's like it was specifically harder like 2-3 years ago when we were like trying to build the SKU count. But now we're seeing like we're getting more shelf space because first of all we got the velocities. The buyers believe in like that this is what the customer wants, and we have the numbers to prove it. So we are experiencing that in our space. I think like this is definitely more harder in more competitive space like snacks and beverages. I think that is crazy environment, but I mean, ours also crazy, but it's like, we're also a little bit slower, so it's like, it takes longer time to get that placement than other
Sure.
spaces, I would assume.
Yeah.
But we have definitely experienced that. Getting the off shelf placement is just a matter of like good negotiations and discussion and relationship. And also you have to pay for it. I mean, nothing is free, so it's like, you have to invest heavily into that, and then you have to figure out, am I going to be on that off-shelf placement with that banner? Is it going to pay off? And I mean, the same questions, arises as with Amazon. Like, how are we going to use this? Are we going to do a BOGO, which is like we're losing on that? Our margins are that not that high to give 150% off the product, but at the same time, are you able, to create first time customers that then are going to buy it again, and then to justify that spend? It's a delicate subject, and it's hard to be that, but yeah, it's just a battle,
Yeah.
and
Totally.
you have to put your best players out there in the beginning that, are your best selling SKUs, and then that will help you grow the space.
Totally. Yeah, that's really helpful. You mentioned right at the beginning, at this point, the brand is in a lot of the major retailers. Just for other up and coming operators as they're starting to get on the shelf, what have you found are some of the key differences in working between, let's just pick Kroger, HEB, and Publix, just in terms of how you work with them on a daily basis? Are there different ways, kind of keys to succeeding and winning on shelf that differ between the three?
Yeah, absolutely. It differentiates within each retailer culture. So they have different ways of doing things and different promotional mechanism and vehicles. So, even though like you want to be in the conversation with the buyer every day, and that's not always the case. Sometimes they just allow you to meet them once a year at a category review, or not even meet you. So suddenly you're just like a blip in their Excel sheet. Other buyers are super communicative and want to have good relationship with their brands and want them to succeed. And I think that's like a pretty good approach and strategy because, you're already there in the shelf, and now you want the brand to commit to like build it within your store and, create better, return on the shelf space that is basically real estate, it differs per retailer for sure. And it's a sensitive like communication. You have to be aware of like that, like if you want to grow, you also have to commit a lot of investment into promotions and so forth. For operators who are focused on growing, I think, and starting, I think like the key is like there's no right way to do it. Like when we started, we went to Amazon, which very few brands were doing. And then we got into conventional, retailers like Meyer and Safe Mart. And then we grew from there. Before that, like people told us, yeah, you have to go with a really specific natural store on this corner in New York City. From there, you can try to approach the buyer for that Whole Foods division, and then you grow there, and then you go national, and then focus on being in one state and grow. And we did like went on Amazon as a natural brand, then we went conventional, then grew from everywhere, and now suddenly, like in the past 1 or 2 years, we went into the natural like full force. I think the key is like pick a state where you're gonna grow, preferably it's where you live there, and try to build like find the retailers that have good relationship with their core customers. Like if they have good relations, HB is a perfect example. I mean, it's just like they treat their customers and people with respect. It's like they want to surprise them. Here's the food. Like if something is wrong, they will fund you. They will like treat you, and it's like the communication is awesome. So it's like it's important to like find a retailer that like is there, and you can maybe preferably grow the brand there, and then focus on building within the state, and then go to other states that you think are better fit for your product than other states. So it's like there is no formula, and we are definitely the odd one out because we went different way in. And we are proof of that. So but I think the key is just like try, like same with Amazon, just start. If you have 10 SKUs, start with 3. Like don't same with like retail, just like focus on the best selling products. Know you're an entrepreneur or innovator or like a new operator, and you want to create everything, and you have built this amazing plan in your head, but like you often have to hesitate and pause a bit and just like focus on like building your core. And I often have to remind myself of that, like every day, like, hey, okay, what's happening with our bestseller? Like let's take a look at that, and then this could be an interesting new product development and so forth.
Totally.
So yeah, it's the focus that matters a lot, and then just using that energy inside to sell and promote and build the brand, and that's the key.
That makes a lot of sense. No, that's really helpful. Garda, this has been really helpful. Like last question for you. Any brands or just trends in general in the CPG space? Anything that's kind of really piqued your interest lately, or anything that you're kind of excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I go to all the shows, and I've been there, and like, there's always some hype with new ingredients or like CBD, for example, that just went into everything, and then like just like stopped. Like vegan, like all this vegan plant alternative, it was huge, like, but now it's kind of like plateaued. It's always going to be there, and I think the growth is there, and I am totally up for better options in terms of meat alternative. But there has been a lot of like it was a lot of overinvestment in that category a couple of years ago, and I think it's going to balance, and I think it's going to grow faster, in my opinion. But I've seen like with the protein trend, it's huge. I think we're going to see a little bit like not all proteins are equal. So we're going to see a little bit like diversification there. What kind of protein, is going to win versus the other less proteins that are available. And then something also we are leaning on is fibers. I think fiber is the new protein, and I think there are tons of opportunities there, specifically, with modern diet when we have to eat on the go, and we're like we don't cook as much as we did. I think trying to get a balanced diet, and there's a missing. It's just missing in our diet is our
Yeah.
fibers. So I think I'm super excited about that one. And you've seen that with Poppy and like all the drinks and beverages that they leaned on that, and I am pretty sure that we're going to see that as well with other categories as
Yeah.
well.
I think you're probably right. But yeah, Garda, this has been awesome. A lot of really valuable insights here. I think people are going to be excited to listen. What's the best place for people to follow along with you, and then best place for people to follow along with the Good Good brand as well?
Well, I'm active on LinkedIn, pouring my heart out there every day. So Gardar Stefansson is
Perfect.
my LinkedIn handle. Good is, I mean, we're amazing on Instagram and TikTok. So I will encourage you to follow us there.
Perfect. Awesome. I think that's the pod.